Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. My guest today is Lin Jones. Her resume is long and impressive. From registered nurse to co-owner and head chef in a restaurant, to a full-time mom and caregiver to elderly family members, to sound engineer for over 1,000 school presentations, to co-author, and now a grandma to 8. Lin has lived a full life. I'm sure there will be encouraging takeaways from our conversation. So, welcome, Lin.
Good morning. Welcome from the other side of the house.
Yeah, here we go. So, we have to admit that we have been on this planet for at least 70 years. And I think I wanted to start this whole thing just getting a little bit of background on you, born and raised where, just real quick. I know you're a Jersey girl.
Yes. I was born in Margaret Haig Hospital, same as you, in Jersey City, New Jersey, which is right outside the Holland Tunnel, across the river from New York, Manhattan. Moved to the suburbs at 3, grew up in a Polish Catholic, first-generation American family, had a mother and father that loved us and cared for us, a sister and 2 brothers. My grandmother lived with us for a while, and was very functional. We were cared for. My parents were blue-collar workers, hard workers, taught us a lot of things that it wasn't a sit-down one-on-one instruction, but lessons that I realized later on, they were the root, teaching us some values and morals and hard work.
Setting examples, right? That's what we all need. So
That's it.
at some point along the way, after your high school career, you make a decision to become a nurse. So just briefly, how did that come about? Because nursing is, you really, I don't know, that's a tough occupation, at least in my mind.
Well, it was not a very well thought out decision. My parents, as wonderful as they were, they, they hadn't gone to college, either one, so they didn't know a whole lot about, like teaching us and what do you want to be and how can we, facilitate that. So I wandered around for, about 6 months to a year after high school. And then a friend said, why don't you go to nursing school? So-and-so went, and she really did well and likes it. And I thought for a very short minute and said, well, I would die living in a cubicle in an office, 5 days a week for the rest of my life. I don't like paperwork, so okay, I'll be a nurse. I'll help with people, which is kind of a riot because it came back to bite me so many years later because it's all paperwork now.
Paperwork,
So,
right?
but it was a good decision,
All right, so you're rolling along, you got your career, and then there's that fateful moment when we meet. So we were away on a camping trip upstate New York. I was with my friends from Secaucus, New Jersey. You were with your friends from Rutherford or whatever suburbs of Rutherford. And so we meet, and then something clicks. I'm not sure what. I just remember the T-shirt you were wearing, which said, Jersey tomatoes are the best. And for any of you young folks know, a tomato was, I guess, a terminology that was used to describe a woman, a girl, a lady back in the day, And so Jersey tomatoes were the best. And somehow I got your contact information, your phone number, and we connect, and everything, is going to go along just lovely. You were finishing up your RN. You were a LPN nurse for a number of years, and you're finishing up your education. I kind of interrupted things after a few months after we met by crashing my Harley and needing extreme care for a long time. I was in the hospital for 30 days. It would have been longer than that. But, and so, you were the one, the consistent one that came and looked after me, cared for me, did everything. And so then we get married, right? I mean,
We did.
one, what was it? Just about exactly 1 year after we met, we
Mhm.
end up, we're tying the knot, as they say.
Yes, we did. Memorial Day we met, and it was the next Memorial Day that we got married. Um, I made you come back the next day and propose again to make sure you really meant it. And it's been a wild ride since then. I think that we hit some of the highest highs and some of the lowest lows, but it was a good ride. Still is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just the wedding itself, right? We had my great grandmother's car was the limousine, right? In 1956, Dodge, was it Coronet four
Arnett.
door, right? But it had wing windows, so even though no air conditioning, and a couple of my buddies were on their Harleys to kind of lead the procession, and as you noted, right, the tuxedos that we had were kind of an off-white color, and the guys, some of the guys didn't have fenders, and it had rained a little bit the night before. So, yeah, but that all got covered over in the photographs and stuff. It didn't matter, but it was kind of fun. And then we go to your aunt's property, aunt and uncle, up in Pine Island, New York, Black Dirt Country, and I don't even know how that happened, but we ended up with a 12-hour wedding reception. Do you remember that?
I do, and I don't. My cousin and her friends did the catering, and I have no idea how they pulled it off. There were two meals. There was lunch and there was dinner. It was two bands, a Polish band and a country bluegrass band. It was a wild time, which how apropos that it should start that way and continue to be an out of the box life together.
And everybody, it seemed, over the hours was like kind of disrobing from the official, wedding attire. But I kind of remember at the end, came down to me and your dad, God rest his soul. Both of us still in our tuxedos and everything. And but yeah, it was an interesting day and night. And I think you just reminded me recently. We had booked some motel rooms close by for people in the wedding party that were staying overnight. And by the time, and there was a room for us, I thought. And by the time we, got on the road ourselves, we make it to the honeymoon suite, but there was no honeymoon suite. All the rooms were taken up. Do you remember that?
I do. Yes, I do. You had to call your friend John Komorowski, who lived a few miles away in Warwick, New York, and said, "John, we don't have any place to sleep. Every
Right.
bed, every bed has multiple bodies in it." So he said, "All right, come on over." And we slept on his Castro convertible in his living room. It was
Wait a minute. Castro, as in like Cuba, as in
no, that was like
communist, is like, bomb the United States. Castro? Who's Castro?
Castro convertible. It's a name brand. It was the name. It
Uh,
was the first open up sleep sofa.
gotcha. All right. Did you say something about a cat? Didn't they
Oh
have
yeah, they had. I was allergic to cats, and they had a cat, so it wasn't the most fun night, fun night
uh,
together.
yeah, but the next day was so cool because the next day, I don't know if it's Polish tradition because I'm a kind of a mutan in terms of ethnic heritage, but you guys are all purebred Polish. So the next day, everybody regathers at the wedding site to help clean up, and then and eat leftovers, and however many kegs of beer were left. I don't know, but it was kind of like the wedding after the wedding party. You know.
Yeah, they call it. Polish people call it propowiny, which means the wedding. The day after the party after the party. So yes, they all we gathered there, and you knew you had a Polish wife because you had kibasi for 5 meals in a row.
Yeah, yeah, because your aunt, she had a smoker room, little hut thing out
Smokehouse.
behind her store. Yeah, her smokehouse, And yeah, they made and smoked all their own kibasi. That was pretty awesome.
Hmm.
So anyway, so between there and getting to the airport, I think we went to the airport the next day to go away, and I came up with this pronouncement that I felt that I was unemployable. I had, my teaching certification. I had driven tractor trailers, and for some reason, I picked that moment to announce to you that I was unemployable, and that we had a couple of dollars put aside. We could have probably gotten into a small house, but I was convinced that we should get into business together. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yes. I remember when you told me you were unemployable, and I had to process that. It took me a little bit to process that. Like when I realized, holy crap, what he's not kidding. he's he's telling the truth. And it wasn't that you were lazy, just that you have a problem with things not being done adequately. And apparently some of your bosses in the past, um, things didn't run really smoothly. So you were not lazy. You just always had a better way to do it.
Yeah, instead of sticking around and gaining seniority and giving my input, I was too anxious to move on.
Mm.
So anyway, I had a school teacher from high school who owned a bar, and I figured, well, I'd spent so much time. I mean, there's a picture somewhere. We're gonna put it up at again some point, but people have seen the picture of the biker and the hippie chick, which was used to describe us in our early days. And I had spent so much time in bars, not bragging or proud or anything like that, but it just seemed like if you were on the other side of the bar, you'd be collecting the money instead of giving the money. And I figured, how hard could it be? And so my high school teacher kind of coached us into purchasing a bar. It was in Clifton, New Jersey, and he. It was interesting because as soon as we got in, his bar went belly up. He went out of business,
Sounds
and
like
we're
fun.
like, wait a minute, we're getting business advice, and their business just failed. So that was kind of a disconcerting moment. But anyway, so we get in, and it was 1980. So anybody that doesn't remember, just look up Urban Cowboy, the movie, John Travolta, and who's the lady in it again?
Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger, right? It was a monster movie. It was after his disco movies, and New York, the whole New York City went country for about 4 years. So the decision was made to go in that direction because you had kind of exposed me to more country than I was aware of. You had traveled a bit, and you're up on all the outlaw country music that wasn't getting played on the AM radio in New York. You were familiar with Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and all the outlaw type country people. So we start with that theme. The place was called A Touch of Country, and I'm tending bar. It was an old German restaurant that we bought, so there was a huge kitchen in the back, but the bar was kind of far away from the kitchen, and so I'm trying to work the bar and bring out just simple bar food from the kitchen, and I wasn't very good at it. You had started your new career as an RN, and tell us a little bit about the phone calls you were getting on the 3 to 11 shift.
um, so what was my first? I had been an LPN for probably about 6 years. Went to school, got my RN, and I was working in Beth Israel Hospital down on Parker Avenue in Passaic, New Jersey. Great little hospital that is no longer there. It was an old-fashioned, real old hospital. So I worked in their intensive care, and it was not like the new units today where it's one big room and you can see everybody, and the nurse's station is usually right in the middle. It was a regular hallway, and there were just special cameras in every room. So I would go to work, and I'd be down the end of the hall, and um, Passaic, New Jersey, there's some really rough areas to it. So we'd get gunshot wounds and stabbings. It was inner city. So I'd be down the hall, tending to someone who was probably bleeding to death or something. And one of the girls would yell from the station that, he wants to know how long to cook the French fries. And I would say, hang up on him. And then you'd
Right.
call the next night and say, the phone would ring and it'd say, he wants to know how long to keep the chicken in the deep fry. Hang up on him. So anyway, you called, I think, every night, sometimes multiple times. And
And this is way before cell phones. This
oh yeah.
is, the phone sitting on at the nurse's station. I'm dialing from a, rotary phone on the wall at the bar, and, how do you boil water? I mean, it was that pathetic, but I've gotten a little bit better over the years. But yeah, so I think then there was some potential. It looked like that the business could be special, and so I started begging and pleading, and knowing, I had known you at that point. I'd only known you for a little over a year, and but I knew that you could cook really good, and so I mean, we had a couple of guests over and people over to visit our apartment and everything, and I remember, everybody always really enjoying, the food you made, right? But
Yeah, but they thought I was such a great cook, but I was just a slow cook. I would, have a glass of wine as I was cooking. So sometimes the food didn't come out till 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the evening. So by that time, everyone was starving. So, of course, I was a good
of
cook.
course, it's great, right?
anything, anything would have been good.
Yeah, but okay, you're being a little too humble, I think. But however, so I talk you into putting your nursing career on hold and coming over and helping out. So here you are, never having run a kitchen. I mean, this is a big commercial kitchen, and so you just took it on and you said, okay, let's just do one thing at a time, like burgers, and you would bring out how many samples of burgers. So whoever's sitting at the bar got to taste and test and say, okay, I like this one, I don't like that one. And we would do that. And in fact, I have one of the old menus. Could be the last one. Does that show up on the screen? Pretty much.
Half of it, yeah.
Uh, Back it up that way.
Centered.
And so, I mean, we had things. So just for some things, it was called Ma Jones's Kitchen. The place is called A Touch of Country. And so Ma Jones's Kitchen, and she had all kinds of specials. So one of them was nachos, salsa and chips, guacamole, quesadillas, enchiladas, burritos, tostadas, and then Ma's chili dogs, Ma's special country burgers. And then we also added in later the authentic buffalo wings, and that's a whole story unto itself. We have to save that for another time. Deep fried mushrooms, French fries, soup of the day, fresh salad, sauteed mushrooms. Then there was a Denver omelet, grilled cheese. We had all these things on this menu, and everything like you researched, but it was like the most basic type of research. You actually gave it to the people sitting at the bar, right? And okay, good, not good, good, not good, and came up with this awesome menu. And so I think that was, I want to circle back to that menu later on, because I think that food preparation and going to the farmers markets and, you know, connecting with all different people in the food industry that maybe, as normal consumers, you don't see that often. I just want to kind of maybe come back to that. So anyway, so we're in the bar. We have live music 3 or 4 nights a week. You know, everybody's having a good time. We had the food. We had a grand opening where we got, I had to appear before the city on that one. We had a little bit of trouble with too many people, and nobody could park for, blocks around and everything. But other than that, then we started doing festivals. We would go up to a lake, we'd rent a lake for a day, and we, get a couple thousand people. And it was just, it was insane, but it was fun. It was good times, but totally exhausted all the time. And so you start hinting at this biological clock thing.
That clock.
Um, and, so it was around that time too that I got invited to a business meeting, and I had no business background other than I owned a bar, just had to come up with the money. But So I go to this business meeting. We both went, and it turns out it's the Amway business. So for people who don't know, Amway, it's still around, but I think, back then it was pretty much known as like a party type business, door to door
Soap.
selling type things, right?
Soap. Hmm.
Yeah, and soap. Yeah, yeah, soap. Very clean. And so, and normally I wouldn't have been interested, but we met two people. One was from my hometown, Fred Ponte, and then one was from your hometown, Tony Lee Folio, who ended up, Ponte as well. And so we kind of figured, well, if they're doing it, maybe it's legit, because I knew them both from education, and you knew them from, you know Tony Lee from growing up. So anyway, so we said, all right, well, we'll sign up. What can you lose? It's part time, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn about people skills and getting out.
Mm.
Sorry about that. Getting out and doing and really doing business. And so we start going to these meetings, and I crack up all the time. I mean, you were always very social and outgoing. Unless I had a few drinks, I was not. And so going to these meetings sober was a little nerve-wracking for me at the time. However, Freddie, who later on became Uncle Freddie, affectionately, and he would always come up to me and he'd give me this big hug. And now I'm a big gorilla, and he's not as tall as me, but he'd wrap his arms around me and give me a hug. And I would get so nervous about that because, where I came from, guys hugging guys was not a thing. And so, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, yikes. And so, but he was so encouraging, and he'd say, "Love you, man." And I was like, what is that? Like now people say it, but back then it was like, wow, that's like cutting edge, like what's going on? So anyway, so we're going on with that. Still working. I don't even know how we had time. I mean, you jumped into that as well, right? Yeah, that was paperwork for sure.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
paperwork.
Yeah. Inviting people and whatever. So a couple of months into it, Freddie announces that we got to go to Virginia for this big Amway thing. All the people that made millions of dollars are going to be down there speaking, and we got to go. So it was you or me. We couldn't both go because it was on a weekend, and we're in a bar business. I mean, and we have entertainment booked and everything. So because I still couldn't cook and you got elected to stay home, and I went with Uncle Freddie. And so I go Friday, Saturday, and I'm taking notes. I was learning a lot of stuff, but um, it was really good. And we're going back to our room on Saturday night. And Freddie announced to me, hey, there's a non-denominational Christian service tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So I said, well, thanks for inviting me. But Uncle Freddie, I said, Lynn and I, we're in the bar business. Sundays traditionally is time to sleep in because we've had a rough week. We had a late night. We don't get home till sometimes the sun is coming up. And yeah, I appreciate the invitation. Plus, I had some bad quote unquote religious experiences in my younger days. And again, bad according to me, my immaturity and whatever. So I said, no, I appreciate the offer. So the next morning, of course, 9 o'clock in the morning, I don't know what hit me, but I could not even roll over. I couldn't fall asleep at all. So I go down, I wander down there. Everybody's talking, giving their testimony about the Lord and in their life and in their business and in their marriage and in their family, all stuff that I had never really connected. And I was just at a point where like, I might as well just give this a shot. So I go forward, do, the sinner's prayer. And, as soon as I can, I get on the phone, pay phone again. I probably had to call collect up to New Jersey. And I said, hey, you'll never guess what happened. I said, I became a Christian. And your reaction was,
Well, we've tried everything else. We might as well try Jesus. Okay.
yeah. And I was kind of surprised because we weren't really going down that road since we had met. But I guess we both
There's
kind
the
of came to
plan.
that realization that like, something else so there must be something else,
More to life, yes, than
There
what we
you
knew.
go. So anyway, so we were kind of, again, moving towards, family stuff and the Amway thing. And So now we decide to, some guys came in one day and they offered me some money. And so we sell the bar and we moved to the country in New Jersey, which, for some people listening might not say, wait, New Jersey, Newark Airport, that's not country. But where we lived, it was. And we were just really blessed to find that place. And so, what's the lifestyle then, right? We go from an apartment to living out in the woods, right? Do you have fond recollections of like moving into this place?
I do. I do that. I loved our place. If it weren't for a number of factors, we might still be there. But it was a great place to raise kids. We started. My relatives, my mother's people were farmers, so we being in the dirt was like, that was my happy place. So it was a great experience. Lots of, it was in the woods. There was a reservoir like a spit away, and the kids grew up romping in the woods. It was clean and relatively safe, if any place can be safe. Yes, great experiences there. Yep.
Yeah. In
Started
fact, we
growing.
have a picture. We do. There is a picture somewhere of you actually laying in the garden in your pajamas at one point. I forget what that was about, why the picture was taken, but it was totally you.
That
Uh,
was because that was when our youngest son got into grounding, and actually, I now believe that there's a lot to it. But at that point, I was just being silly. I went out and you had just tilled it, I think, so it was all nice and brown and flat. And I laid down with my pajamas on and a pillow in the middle of the dirt and sent it to him. It was kind of a joke, but there is a lot to what goes on. The energy's in the earth, so
oh, for sure. And I at that time too. I mean, I was driving trucks. I just as a stopgap, I went back to driving tractor trailers, um, and personal training had come into vogue. This was like 1984, so I started training some people part time, and so people ask about not just exercises, but also what to eat, supplements, and everything else. So I was in the relatively early stages of that. Although my mom had my mom was one of the original health nuts because of my poor health as a child myself. So I was familiar with a lot of these things, taking your vitamins and eating good food and what have you. But the definitions of that were a little bit vague, and yeah, so we started just being a little bit more aware, I think, of that whole side of life. I think I got more distrusting of what was being sold in the stores. I think we kind of both, we just realized. I mean, if you eat something fresh out of the garden versus go to the store and buy it, any kind of vegetable or fruit, whatever. I mean, it's just the taste. It tells you there's something else, that you're missing just buying it from the store. And so we really started on a journey of being more health conscious. And I remember, before we understood about tofu, remember buying these like giant 5-gallon pails of tofu and like frying it up. The kids were like, oh no, fried tofu again. Do you remember that? I was like, ah. And then when I found out tofu, maybe the sourcing of it was not the best, so everybody was happy that we just kept the buckets for storage or something like that. But and then you got involved with getting really good quality meats whenever possible, right? You remember that chicken deal you had going?
I do. I do. And that, by the way, that massive amounts of tofu. Do you remember that? Why you started buying them in 5-gallon buckets? The tofu.
No.
I was having some menopausal symptoms at one point, and tofu was and soy was supposed to like help that along. So I sent you out for tofu, and you came back with a 5-gallon bucket, which should tell everybody exactly what I was like if you bought me a 5
Mhm.
gallon bucket
Oh yeah,
full of
yeah.
tofu. But yeah, I did start researching. Like you said, your mother, between her knowledge about Adele Davis and Carlton Fredericks and my mom too. I mean, we ate fresh vegetables and fruits and meats and not a lot of garbage food. So we did both of us have that in our background, but we wanted to take it to another level. So I grew what we could. The garden in Rockaway was really big, so we grew what we could, and then I found a dry goods co-op. A woman in the next town was running, and I don't know how we found Goffel Road Poultry Farm. In the first place in Wyckoff, New Jersey. God bless you, Donald, if you ever hear this. But you could you stopped there and you started bringing home chicken. It was real clean. They couldn't call it organic because the stipulations to be called that were like really strict. No one within a certain radius could be using any kind of a chemical or on their property. So Joe didn't call it organic. However, it was nice, clean
Free
meat.
range, though.
Yeah, free
You call
range
it free
and
range? Yeah.
yes, non-GMO. It was excellent. So that kind of uh, just went crazy. At one point, there was 24 other women that were involved, and I would call in an order, like once every other month. And at first, you used to bring it home, like thousands of pounds of chicken would sit on
Right.
ice in the garage, and then at one point they started to deliver. So we just found that we had to do a little work to eat as clean as we could. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we just found a way to find clean food. We had to go to one store for one thing, another store for another. We had the co-ops going on, and we just worked it the best we could. It just the
What
rule
about
was,
Tom Kaharski and the beef out
oh
in
yeah, oh
Hackettstown, New Jersey with this?
Tom, my Ukrainian farmer, used to tell
There
me
you go.
the only difference between Polish and Ukrainian was that a Ukrainian was just a Polak with a job. So,
Ah, oh, that
so
was mean.
well,
But
fortunately, I never took offense. It's like I like humor. But anyway, Tom raised his own cows and sent them to slaughter, and we'd go out, and a couple of us would chip in for half a cow and schlep it on home. So we found a way. When it was difficult. Well,
I think we evolved too in terms of. I remember we were. I don't remember what year it was, but it was somewhere in that time frame. But we went to see this Dr. Ellis, and he was he was like kind of the last. He was a nutrition guy, kind of on the cutting edge at that point, and so we made an appointment just to go and get evaluated by him. And I forget how far we had. Was that? I think that was in Pennsylvania, and
no, it was
we
down way south Jersey, I think, or maybe
yeah.
Pennsylvania. Anyway.
But anyway, so we go there and we walk in and the doctor says, "Oh, gee, you guys look in great shape." Usually I get people that are just, one step before the grave or whatever. And we're like, "Yeah, but we don't feel good." And so, he did a little survey on us and everything and did some testing and stuff. And it's like, we were following at the time, the conventional wisdom, which isn't always
The
wisdom, was
healthy diet.
right, was, heart healthy, low fat diet. And so we were doing, really low fat. I don't remember. I didn't have egg yolks for like, I don't know how many years we didn't have an egg yolk. And, but then, he said, no, that's backwards. That's not, that's not the way you eat. That's not the way, life really is, So we jumped in and, we actually on the way home, we got eggs and bacon somewhere and, hold the bread though, because, well, we can talk about that at some point too, about what's happened to all our food sources, the way things are grown. I think now we've just gotten to a point where I'm excited hearing about my niece up in West Virginia, regenerative farming, getting back to growing things and buying things local, providing. I think the good Lord, the creator of all things, I don't think we need to improve on the way he made things. But I think the world, in term, if people say, well, we need to feed more people, or we have to, make the grain grow without weeds or whatever. And we need to do this and we need to do that. And we need to, all these different techniques that they use to get more production. I think a lot of it is more just profit driven, and it's really not health driven. And I think so. My thing right now is, and I'm dragging you along with me because we're together in this. Um, is that everything is provided for in nature, and I think we can all benefit from it. But we've gotten so far from it. Like even the basic like cereals that we would
Mm.
eat as a kid, now they're not healthy. They're not good for you. And we can look at the statistics on everything. But anyway, all that to say, I guess we're still like, what are we, second generation health food nuts, I guess. But it's kind of paid off, right? I mean, we talked about earlier our age. I mean, thank God. I mean, I'm not, no lifetime medications. We're able to keep our weight, reasonable, and I don't think we're wanting for anything. It's not like we
No.
can't eat, right? We do, the 80-20 thing you used to talk to the parents about when we were giving our workshops, right? I mean, you get it right 80% of the time, and don't beat yourself up about the times you don't. But I think a lot of people just are not aware. They're just
Right.
they're just not aware.
Right.
If you would say too, right? If you can't pronounce something on a label, well then
Well,
don't
don't
buy
eat
it.
it. Don't
Right?
eat
Don't
it.
eat it. Right. So then you talk too about, didn't you go on a field trip or something to a laboratory once? You used to tell that story where
I
stuff like beakers were like
Yeah.
bubbling.
Yeah, we did. On one of the field trips, we were in a lab, and people were pouring different compounds into these, you know, test tubes, and it was kind of crazy. And I really don't know how I made the connection, but at one point, I realized that some of that stuff, some of those chemicals, were in our food. So that's what we were eating, So that
Yeah.
made an impression on me.
Yeah. And I think, it should make it on everybody, but I guess you have to trust at some point, but I'd rather trust a local farmer
Mm,
uh, that's doing the regenerative thing, that's not using all kinds of horrible fertilizers and
chemical.
uh, GMO grains and things like that. So, but anyway, yeah, we'll move on. So anyway, so we're rocking and rolling up in the country. We're getting things going, and we had a little girl when we first moved up there, Jane, and then we had a little boy. Super Bowl Sunday, 1987. We call him PD, but it was Russell Peter. And so then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was 11 months old before Christmas that following year. There's a car crash, and PD dies in the crash. You almost die in the crash, um, and everything changed. Okay, we were both baby Christians. Like, okay, Lord, what's going on? And it wasn't in that tone. I was like crying out, yelling, whatever. You were still in the hospital and you weren't even aware that he was buried,
Mm.
uh, because you were in intensive care for so many days. And so we come through that, the physical part, which wasn't overnight. That took time. Um, and I went through this whole thing where I had to have everything under control, right? I mean, it's kind of my nature anyway, but I had to have this all under control. And the next thing I know, I had no control over
Mm.
anything. And so trying to, take care of our daughter who was in the car at the same time, take care of you, keep the house afloat, just total chaos. And I don't know, I thought at one point about a month or two into it that I had it all together. And but then my body started freaking out. Like in my mind, I thought I had it together, but my body just started going crazy and all different types of symptoms. And that's when they put me on medication, right, for one day, and that didn't work out too well.
Well, they
And
didn't
so,
put you on. They didn't put you on medication for one day. They put you on medication. You just chose to stay on it for one
Right.
day.
All right. Okay, you got me on that one. That's exactly right. And so I really started researching then about grieving, loss, extreme stress like this was, and I came up, with I think it was about 10 points. I put it in the Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired book. Daily things that I needed to do, but the reality was too is that I had to give it a year. I think just researching and everything else. I mean, yeah, it's not you're not going to feel good, and that's okay. It's normal. But you can still do things. You can still make steps. You can still develop habits that contribute to your healing. And so, like that was my part of it when we were doing it together, though. So what's your recollection? Because a mom's perspective is always different than a dad's.
Hmm. Um, well, we were fortunate that, and it has always kind of been this way, that when one of us is down, the other one is holding fast. So you got me through the critical part in my physical healing, and then you just fell apart yourself. But when you have an experience like that, I mean, you are you become shaped, by your experiences, your choices. Um, and during that time, we went to that nice people in that one church that had a grieving parents group, and they were wonderful people. They're people that ministered to others through this grief sharing group. However, we went once and met some nice people, but there were people there who were still grieving after like 10 years and 12 years, and I guess maybe they would tell their story to encourage others that they made it through, but it was still so emotionally charged for them. And we made a decision at that point that we weren't going to do that. It's like, yeah, we needed to recover, we needed time to process. And the whole experience shaped us in different ways, but we just decided that we were going to do something. We were going to do this healing and recovery a little bit different, and we did. And you make a choice when you have something like that happen. You make a choice. You either lay down and die, or you get up and fight. And I remember that in that intense period of sorrow, the only people that were able to help me were people who had walked that road. I remember Tommy White, just smiling, that great smile of his, saying it's going to be okay. And then I remember, Peggy Lecce, a girl from high school, and she had lost two beautiful children, like days apart. One was 11 and one was 12. It was from cystic fibrosis, which is a horrible thing. But she called me and said, you're going to feel okay. You are going to smile again. You're going to laugh again. It's going to be okay. And those were the people who gave me hope. And in turn, I'm always looking for the good in something. And that's what I got from that. Now I'm able to look somebody in the eye and say, I know what you feel like, and it's going to be okay. You have to believe it's going to be okay, So that was
That
my
was
take.
that. I mean, that's. I think as we go through this life thing, I think that's part of you know as you grow and grow in experiences, right? Your empathy is going to help the next person, and everybody has stuff. Everybody has tragedies, disasters, sicknesses. Everybody does. It doesn't matter. Money cannot buy you out of all those sort of things in life, because this is not heaven. This is definitely we're going through trials and tribulations for sure every day, and so that you're able to come through it and then be a source for others. I mean, I think that's the best you could expect or hope for coming through a situation like that.
From that.
So anyway, so then we go. All right, so from being super mad and angry about God, and I go to let's just figure this out. We started doing something called God chasing. We were going everywhere to find, like peaceful things and leaning on God in different ways. And we had been told that because of the nature of your injuries from the accident, that you weren't going to be able to have any more children. And surprise, surprise, I don't even. There was two more showed up, and so that was I think, watching you and seeing you, trying not to be quote unquote overprotective, but at the same time, like just being aware and just appreciating, not another chance, but just appreciating having your children with you. Um, that was interesting to watch. I know we messed around with different schools, homeschooling. You were taking care of family members. I had this Holy Ghost experience in the early '90s, and I start doing these presentations in schools. I'm bending and breaking and tearing things, and you were running the sound. You became the sound engineer. We'd go into all these different places, lugging all this equipment, and introductions. You do some teaching. Keeping everything together with that, as well as monitoring the kids at home when we're out. Uh, and then, over the years, I mean, it just kind of, the years piled up, family, happy times, not happy times, whatever. And then COVID hits. I know I fast forwarded pretty fast. And the family had scattered, not because of COVID, but everybody moved out of state in terms of our children for different reasons, opportunities and marriages and things like that. And we just kind of came to the realization that nobody was coming back because of taxes and real estate uh, costs and traffic and whatever. They weren't coming back. And so we decided to move out of New Jersey. We ran down by my mom, who had moved to North Carolina. We were there for a few months, and I'm getting kind of antsy because I'm like, 67 years old, living with my mom. All right. And I know we were there for a reason. She had a stroke, and you're caring for her and everything, and, trying to be supportive. But me and a homeowners association do not exactly go together, plus
No.
our two big dogs, whatever. So we end up through another crazy chain of events. We end up in the deep South in South Carolina. And I mean, have you like even reflected on that? We've only been here 3 years, but
Mhm.
every time I say that, I remember like growing up as a kid, whatever the perception of the deep South was, like, I just never imagined like living there. Did you have a perspective? You traveled a lot more than I did when we were younger.
Well, it was definitely time to move, um, and we did love that house, but we wound up, uh, being able to keep it because we continued to work really, really hard, and it was becoming a lot. So we did sell the house, and it was kind of exciting. We as stressful as it was because we had from the time I left my job till the day we walked up that driveway for the last time, we had 4 weeks to get rid of like 40 years worth of stuff. Um, so that was a little bit stressful. But when we finally got it done, we didn't even we walked up the driveway that last day kind of holding each other up and didn't even look back, and we loved that house, but we were just so exhausted. But we get to North Carolina, and it was kind of fun. Like, I remember taking a picture of you driving the U-Haul truck with the trailer and the car on the trailer and the dog in the passenger seat, and I'm following you in my vehicle. And it was kind of exciting. It was like an adventure. It's like, okay, where are we going? I don't know. So
Right, right.
we're going to our new life though. But then when we, got to South Carolina, um, you had wanted to live in South Carolina. You requested that we would live in a red state, and I didn't really care. So
Well, we
South
wanted to be near
Carolina,
we wanted to be near Christopher too,
right,
Christopher and
right,
his
right.
family.
He
Our
was
oldest
the
son and his
closest.
family. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was. I mean, it's different, but it's good. It's, the series of events that had gone on a few years preceding that move. It just was kind of all lined up, and this is what we were supposed to be doing. It was kind of part of the plan. So here we are, and it's South Carolina is beautiful and great people. I mean, we surrounded us. I feel like we were just graciously plopped down in the middle of this great neighborhood with, it's rural like ours was up home, but great neighbors and lots of soil to grow, and a longer growing season, and we just it was it's scary when you've done your whole life in one place and you pick up and move, but there's a time for change, and there was a time
But
for
I
that.
know you had that, you had like sisterhood,
Oh yeah.
spiritual connections up north, um, just, that you had developed over the years. And I guess, during COVID, the Skype, not Skype, but those sessions you guys had, uh,
Zoom.
Zoom sessions, right? Every week or 2 weeks, whatever. So that carried over when we moved. Physically, people couldn't be together, but you're still able to keep your connections up north. But then at the same time, uh, all of a sudden it was just like unbelievable connections we started making down here. I mean, people were just outgoing, friendly, caring, great neighbors, great church family. It's just been amazing. But yeah. So that's basically all I wanted to go through today. Just giving people kind of an introduction to where we are, what we're all about, and so from perspectives based on experience regarding food to getting through tragedy to being able to adapt, I think today's conversation should give everyone a big dose of hope, and all things ultimately do work out. And that's a wrap. I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode, and you got some takeaways that you can use. You can reach Lynn probably out in the garden in the dirt. At this point in the podcast, they usually give people's web pages and everything, but
Dirt.
it's just,
Dirt.
drive by and traveler's risk, ask about the lady out in the dirt, and you'll find Lynn. Uh, and please share this with your friends. Don't forget all my stuff at russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 15-year-old, check out our 60-day transformational interactive video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. And in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong. Then you can all go and make it a great day. Bye for now.
Bye.